Yeah, so I want to start with this quote from the excerpt that was released in the Atlantic on
This
Wednesday
week,
morning.
yeah.
On Wednesday morning, their thinking was zero sum. If she's shining, he's dimmed. None of them grasped that if I did well, he did well. That given the concerns about his age, my visible success as his vice president was vital. It would serve as a testament to his judgment in choosing me and reassurance that if something happened, the country was in good hands. My success was important for him. His team didn't get it. And I
Mm.
wanted to start there because I think that many of us who have interfaced with the Biden administration at all, this was not a quiet rumbling. This was something that was regularly discussed about how they were handling Kamala Harris, what her portfolio was. Why was that her portfolio? When was she going to get out front and lead on some things? And I think really it took until well into their third year around the Dobbs decision where we really saw her go out without him, without kind of being restrained or handled by White House staff. So this piece to me was particularly resonant because, again, it wasn't a secret for those of us who knew her or know this administration or knew that administration. It was the least or the worst kept secret. So I do think that, one, I want to hear from y'all on what you're expecting in this book. Again, it's released on September 23rd, but I think that this particular passage is fascinating because I thought we'd been new this.
Yeah.
Mm.
Let me just say for our viewers, this excerpt was dropped in the Atlantic this week. Jeffrey Goldberg had a really interesting, who of course is the editor of the Atlantic, had a really interesting intro. Even I thought with how he introduced it, because he kind of sets the tone of, there are so political books, particularly post-mortem political books, can be incredibly boring, and he sets the tone that this is not what he was expecting from her. And I think a lot of people, particularly within the Beltway, will be talking about this. And so I just want to take a moment and tell our listeners, if you guys are talking about it, please be sure to tell your friends that NLP tackled this topic, and share it among your group chats, because we want to know if our thoughts reflect yours, and want to hear from you. Andrew, what's your take on this book?
Just pulling back, I think it's impressive to see her really sound like herself. And I guess what I mean by that, again, Angela alluded to this for those of us who have been in, contact or have had any real significant relationship with the vice president. We know the authentic side, the real side. And I think she invites the readers, at least so far in this excerpt. And if this is a sign of things to come with the full writing of the book, released later, this month, then I think we're in for a less filtered, almost to unfiltered, truth teller in Kamala Harris, who's really prepared to square up with the ways in which she's been wronged, the ways in which the credit that she's rightfully earned has not been provided, given to her, right? She hadn't been given her flowers. And I also think we'll get a less filtered version of her policy self. So her political self, her policy self, and I think her true sort of I'm Kamala, not the Kamala Harris, but I'm Kamala introduction for regular ordinary folks who just want to know that there are points of relationship, points of relate, where they can say, "Oh, I do that too. She does that. Oh, I do that too." I think that's eluded her for a lot of her political career. That relatableness between everyday common folks.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only other thing I'd say, just sort of big picture, would be I've already started hearing some of the conversation amongst the punditry class, sort of reading this excerpt in contrast to how Biden would feel, what Biden would think. And I just want to say this is her writing.
That's right.
This is reflecting her harrowing journey, unprecedented in American history, lift from vice president to presidential contender because the sitting president of the United States steps back from the nomination. So it's okay if she's centered in this. It's okay for the book that she wrote to be about her experience from her perspective and not centering Joe Biden in that. That's not disloyal. I'm not being disrespectful to him. I'm simply reminding us that we can read her words and take them as hers in their own singular context without having to compare or contemplate how's this going to land with Joe Biden's world.
You kind of get
Yeah.
into the some of my thoughts around this, Andrew, because I do think this is a bigger deal to the chattering class, to the punditry class, than it is to America writ large. I will
Yeah.
say, when I was reading the excerpt in the Atlantic, that she does speak right to the heart of Black women. Like, she starts out
Mm.
with speaking to Zeta Phi Beta sorority. She gives a shout out to the Divine Nine right off the top. She
Yeah.
talks about the Boule. And so I think there are so many Black people who will immediately relate to this,
Yeah.
and particularly her being this overqualified woman who was standing behind an ailing, some might argue failing, in health anyway, man. And so, yes, that will resonate. I also saw a counterpart in that, and I think this is where it's always been a balance, right? On what I would personally find interesting versus what the audience
Mm.
at large would find interesting. I
Mm.
also know there will be people, Black people in particular, who do not relate to the Boule, who do not relate to the Divine Nine, who do not relate to fraternities and sororities and private colleges and HBCUs, and who will still feel, I do not, this writing does not connect with me. And so I think a
Mm.
lot of these political postmortems are so exciting to the Beltway class and not
Mm.
necessarily to people outside of that, given what's happening in the country. I also think I so understand her frustration, and it's like, I get to tell my story. I will not be muzzled in this moment. And I
Yeah.
want to tell you all, this is what happened to me. I wonder if the appetite among the American readership, the ever dwindling American readership, because we all know how hard it is in publishing right now, if the appetite is less like, we want to know what happened versus
Yeah.
we want to know, how do we defeat Donald Trump and his minions
Mm.
right now. I
Yeah.
don't know how
Yeah.
much people will latch on to what was happening last year,
Mm,
given that we are in a state of panic right now. So, look,
Yeah.
personally, I am going to consume this book. Like I said, I read it and I thought, oh, you are going there. And this is an excellent excerpt to read to attract people
mhm,
to it. I just don't know if the American people have the appetite for it right now. I think a lot of Black women, Black people with disposable income, will most certainly buy this book, and I anticipated that it will spend a lot of time on the New York Times bestseller list. And my best wishes to her. I hope it does. I have completely divorced myself from the Beltway class, their opinions about it. Of course, they would center the white man in this. And I would just,
mm,
if they happen to ever listen to NLP, I mean, I think they have to reckon with the fact, we talk all the time. We have a group chat when we're together, we talk about things. We rarely, and even in our group chats outside of each other, I can't tell you the last time somebody has said, "Oh my God, did you guys see what happened on Meet the Press today? Did
Right.
you guys watch Stephanopoulos today?" Like, they are
Right.
the anachronisms. Nobody gives a shit what they have to say. So the fact that they're centering Biden shows how disconnected they are from a multi demographic society that has completely left them behind. They have still
Mm.
trafficked in a media landscape that has been completely bleached by their myopic, outdated, anachronistic viewpoints. And
Tell us
she's
how you feel,
clear,
girl.
but she is clear that she's like, she DGAF, okay? She's like, I'm coming out guns a-blazing and I'm saying what happened. So we'll see how people respond to it. Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.